Hello and welcome back to another Blurble Reasoning. Today we're going to talk about how I finished up my Mistborn Era 1 reread with The Hero of Ages. I am going to be talking full spoilers today, so there's your warning. Without further ado, you may notice that it took me a week to read this book as opposed to a month to read book 2. That's primarily just because I've been playing games which allow me to kind of passively play the game and focus on the book that I'm listening to at the same time, and that is actually one of my favourite methods of reading. I've discovered that I find a certain zen when it comes to multitasking, maybe because my brain has less room to wander and think about other things, and I'm able to focus on the book more. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone out there. Might be an ADHD thing, I don't know. But another reason why I got through this book faster is just because even though I rated the last book 5 out of 5, this book is like a 10 out of 10, if you know what I mean. The last one was like a 9 out of 10. The Hero of Ages is such a fun book because it provides such satisfying answers in such a satisfying way to the mysteries which have been building up throughout the entire trilogy. Everything that the universe has been building up to is delivered in such a neat little package towards the end, while still allowing some mysteries to remain. And the ending is so bittersweet. Oh my god. It might be the most bittersweet ending I think I've read since... Well, I can't tell you, because then you'll be expecting a type of ending from whatever I tell you about. But we lose so many beloved characters in the final fight. Now, this is a reread, so while there are a lot of things that I forgot about, which seem crucial and integral to the story, such as Vin taking on the powers of a god, there are also things which I did remember, the fact that Vin and Elend die in the end. You might be wondering, how can you remember that Vin dies without remembering how she dies? Yeah, I don't know, brains are weird. But as I've mentioned previously in my videos on this series, I am thankful for the things that I've forgotten about, because it allowed me to rediscover them all over again, especially in terms of the revelations about how certain powers worked, and preservation and ruin and all that good stuff. I couldn't even remember who the Hero of Ages turned out to be, and the interesting thing about this, if you haven't listened to it via Audible or audiobook or whatever, you might wonder just how we are able to keep that a secret, because you would expect it to be read out in Sazed's voice, and it kind of is, but at times it also... Michael Kramer does such a good damn job of making the accent a little nebulous so that it could also be Vin, because you're supposed to think that it's Vin. And you know, maybe it helps that Sazed and Vin have similar sounding voices to begin with. I don't know how much of that was, you know, planted from the start, or whether it just so happened to be a good thing, but still. I find that there is really very little to criticize with The Hero of Ages. Like, I love everything. I love seeing Elend's character arc turn, like, all the way to, like, I am the leader that the world needs me to be, and who I want to be is not on the table right now. And we get to see how his new Mistborn powers kind of play into his ability to kind of, like, lead and, like, be part of fights and stuff. I like how we spend some time with Spook in this book to try and help flesh out more of the world before it ends, and kind of send half of the crew over to Urto and explore that city, and explore how the teachings of Kelsier can be warped into something not great. To, you know, even though Kelsier has been dead for 2 books now, he's still very much a part of the story and a part of a world, and it's interesting to go and explore the ramifications of him deifying himself as a martyr, and also how that has a big influence on Spook, and you know, how it makes sense for Spook to react and behave in the way that he does based on how he's been treated in the previous books and his low self-esteem he has about himself. Some of the most masterful kind of like sleight of hand narrative tricks have been pulled off with the whole hemalurgy stuff, where if you're impaled with a piece of metal, you know, you are able to be controlled by ruin if it's enough of a piece of metal, or you're able to kind of like double up on specific allomantic abilities, which is how it's revealed that Vin is able to pierce copper clouds. I did mention that theory in the previous video, by the way. I still don't know if it's a half-remembered thing, or if it's just something that I had as a theory reading through this time, and maybe last time as well. I think you're supposed to kind of like figure it out long before it's told to you. Because I mean, I guess when you think about it, they do spend a lot of time being like, and her earring, and you're like, yeah, I know she's wearing an earring, why do you keep lingering on this? It was also really fun to spend some time with TenSoon and explore the Kandra and their society, which of course tragically at the end is made defunct, as they all have to what do the kids say these days? Unalive themselves to save the world. And it's nice to see that it's not just something that they were all able to do. Obviously, as a society, they're going to grapple with that particular command because, hey, it is basically their world that they're ending. No matter how much you bind yourself to a contract or to a faith, being told that you have to end yourself and everyone that you've ever loved is a hell of an order. And how do you get them to see that and understand that? It is a shame we didn't really get any more time with TenSoon and Vin being able to have conversations, because those were some of my favourite parts of the previous book, but alas, it was not to be. Sazed's Crisis of Faith had the potential to come off as something which felt like a drag, and he suffers with depression a lot in this book as well. Brandon Sanderson has overtly talked about how he was exploring the mental health issue of depression through Sazed in this book. And as someone who is like an agnostic leaning atheist, I suppose, I've actually taken issue with some of the religious themes in Brandon's books before. If you go back and listen to my Elantris blurbal reasoning from a few months ago, I had some issues with, oh my god, what's his name? Hrathen. There are some similarities between Hrathen and Sazed in what they go through in those books, and I think Sazed is a much better, I don't know about representation of a crisis of faith because I've never had one, but much more relatable and understandable, I think. It had the potential to feel like something that we were lingering on when there were more important things going on, but actually it didn't feel that way at all. It felt like it was central to whatever was happening in the story, although maybe I only feel this way on my reread because I did remember Sazed's ultimate fate in becoming the god of Scadrial. I paid extra attention to the lore this time around, knowing just a slight little bit more about the Cosmere than I did before. Adolnasium, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, he's mentioned for the first time in this book. I see him being mentioned in Brandon Sanderson's YouTube comments all the time. I'm assuming he is the original ultimate god of the universe who died and his body broke into the separate powers that are used as godly powers throughout the individual worlds. That is my, I guess, theory. Is it a theory? If I don't have all that much to base it on, it's what I'm going to assume is going on here. Please do not tell me if I'm right or wrong. But it was really interesting to explore the ideas of these two gods, Ruin and Preservation, and how Preservation sacrificed part of his power to create sentience and humans, and how, at some point says it's like, but these two powers are parts of a whole, and they can only create when they work together, so what split them up in the first place? I wonder if we'll ever get an answer for that, or like why they were split up in the first place. I did pick up on the fact that the phrase Shadows of Self was used in reference to the Mist Spirit, I think, who turned out to be Preservation, and one of the Wax and Wayne books is called Shadows of Self, so that does make me think maybe we will continue to explore Sazed as a godly power in the universe in those books. I'm really excited to see if that's the case. Like, ultimately, I'm expecting maybe a cameo at the end of that book series at most, but having seen the title of that book be referenced here, maybe not, maybe it's going to be more than that. But yeah, it's interesting to think that going forward through the Mistborn eras, there is going to be a sentient and benevolent god who behind the scenes has the ability to influence the world. I wonder if that's going to come up at all. I did really like, by the way, the book and the note that Sazed left Spook just being like, hey, so I'm God now. Turns out I can't bring people back from the dead. Sorry, I tried. They're chill in the afterlife, though. There's an afterlife, by the way. It's like, whoa, okay. That's a lot of information to drop on a mortal. I have to wonder how that's going to influence religion going forward, since religion is such a key theme in the text. I did think it was really clever how Brandon made it so that all the religions that were stored on Sazed's copper mines on his arms ended up being integral to teaching him how to put the world back together as it was. That was a really cool kind of coming together part of the story, but it also reinforces this thing that I cannot shake of, I swear Brandon Sanderson is more like academically theological about religion than he is, I don't know, like putting his faith forwards because the man is a Mormon. But like, I don't know, maybe that's fucked up to speculate on. Maybe I shouldn't be questioning someone's faith through their text. But I'm going to include it here because I would be lying if I said it wasn't in the back of my mind while reading this and affecting how I felt about the story. Obviously, I'm glad he's not preaching his faith at me through values within his own text, the story. But, I have trouble coming to terms with the idea of someone who is so well accomplished as someone who understands theology but also has his own faith. But I guess that's that's part of Caesar's character arc as well, so I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's cool. Now, the next question is, where do I continue from here? Because there is Mistborn Secret History, and Mistborn Secret History has the blurb that says it contains it contains apparently very minor spoilers for the Bands of Mourning, which is the third book of the Wax and Wayne quadrilogy. Is quadrilogy a word? It is now. But people online seem to be like, no, don't do that. Don't read Mistborn Secret History after Era 1 because it's got big spoilers in it, but the man himself says very minor spoilers, so I think I'm going to read Mistborn Secret History next. I've asked about online and the general consensus is like, do what you want, but you know, it definitely follows on immediately after Era 1, and if you read Era 2 first, you might feel like you've forgotten some of the important things from Era 1 in that story, and yeah, I think I'm just going to read Mistborn Secret History. Hopefully the very minor spoiler is a very minor spoiler, but if not, you know, ultimately I'm just going to learn about it a little bit earlier than anticipated and have a bit of foreknowledge going into the Wax and Wayne books, and I think that's fine. It also helps that I finished this book faster than expected and do not have any more Audible credits to spend. So that's what we'll be doing. I'm anticipating having enough to talk about for a blurbal reasoning regarding Mistborn Secret History, and within that, I will also include my thoughts on The 11th Metal, which is a short story, which most people say read after Era 1. So that's what I'm going to do first, and then I'm going to read Secret History. I've been curious about Secret History for such a long time, and I'm very excited to read it, so that's what I'm going to go do now. So, thank you very much for stopping by. It's been so fun and very bittersweet. Like I said, teared up a few times towards the end of the story, and I'm glad I went back and reread it because I forgot so much. It's insane just the amount of story that I forgot about, but it's fresh in my mind now, so while it's fresh in there, I'm gonna continue onwards through the Cosmere and see if I can't enjoy it all the more for it being fresh in my brain. Oh, also, I did notice the Hoyd scene where he showed up and was going to be an informant like he was in book 1, but Vin, for some reason, decided not to go and talk to him. That was cool. Excited to see more Hoyd stuff. Anyway, that'll do for now. Catch you in whatever I make next.